Before starting the event, I seek permission of our chief guest, Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayan Murthy Sir, Judge of Andhra Pradesh High Court. May I, Your Lordship?
Go ahead.
Okay, sir. A very warm welcome and good morning to all the dignitaries and dear participants. Distinguished Judge of the Allahabad High Court once said, and I quote, that the judgment writing is the strength of common law system. The experimental variety within it helps to develop the law. It is the privilege of each succeeding generation of judges to nurture the proud heritage and to advance this precious legacy. Therefore, to nurture the young generations and to advance the legacy, Manikchand Pahade Law College Aurangabad has organized this 5 days national online workshop on the topic of art of judgment writing. I, Mayur Subedar, welcome you all to this inaugural session of the 5 days workshop. We are honored to have among us Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayan Murthy Sir, Judge, High Court of Andhra Pradesh, as our chief guest this morning. We are also honored to have Advocate Shri J.K. Vasarikar Sir, President, MLNG Society Aurangabad, as the president of this inaugural session. We are at the same time honored to have Shri Ritesh Mahatwal Sir, Judge at Panala, Kolhapur, Dr. C.M. Rao Sir, Principal of Manikchand Pahade Law College Aurangabad, Professor Shri Kishan More Sir, Vice Principal, Manikchand Pahade Law College Aurangabad, distinguished members of the bar and bench, office bearers of MLNG Society Aurangabad, respected teachers and beloved participants. To start with the proceedings, I request Professor Dinesh Kolte Sir, coordinator of this 5-day workshop, to kindly introduce the workshop. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. A very good morning to all. Honorable Chief Guest of this inaugural session, Shri Justice M. Satyanarayana Murthy Sir, Judge High Court of Andhra Pradesh Amravati, Honorable President of this inaugural session, Honorable Advocate Shri J.K. Vasarikar Sir, President, Marathwada Legal and General Education Society Aurangabad, all the office bearers of our society, all the resource persons of these workshops, all the judges throughout India, all the principals of law colleges, head of department, professors, advocates, law students. I, Professor Dinesh Kolte, coordinator of this workshop, warmly welcome you all in this 5 days national workshop on art of judgment writing. The Legal Aid Clinic of our college organized various activities such as legal aid awareness camps, performance street plays, special lectures, paralegal trainings for volunteers, and free legal aid services. The students of our college participating judgment writing competition as well as appear judicial service exam. They do not get proper guidance. Hence, we are organizing this workshop for all. In total, 743 participants have registered for throughout India. From every state, the participants have registered it. We have invited the eminent and experienced resource person to share their expertise on this topic. Once again, I welcome you all. With this, I conclude my introductions. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I request our beloved principal, Dr. C.M. Rao, sir, to kindly introduce the college to the virtual gathering. Over to you, sir.
Respected chief guest and resource person and our president of the society, dear participants from all over India, and the coordinator of this particular workshop, I deem it a privilege to brief introduction of this institution for the August gathering today. This society was established in 1956 as a Marathwada Legal Education Society. At that time, there is a need for legal education in this backward region of Marathwada, which is in the Hyderabad state. In 1955, September 23rd, the society was registered, and in August 1st, the Legal Education Society started in the name of Manikchand Pahade Law College. At the initial stages, it was affiliated to Osmania University. Later, it was affiliated to Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar Marathwada University of Aurangabad. The particular institution reaches 64 years on August, completion of 64 years. In this particular journey, there are a lot of people who served this institution right from the beginning in 1956. Barrister Das is the particular founder principal of this institution. Now I am the 11th principal of this institution. The institution bagged several prizes right from 2015 to 2020. 20th rank of Outlook magazine, 16th rank of Outlook magazine in 2016, 22nd rank of the Outlook magazine 2017, 16th rank of Career magazine 2018, 8th rank of Corporate Citizen in 18, 27th rank of India Today 2018, 21st rank of Outlook Top Professional Colleges 2018, 15th rank of Career magazine, Career 360 magazine, Best Law Colleges 2019, 20th rank of Outlook India Best Professional Law College 2019, 17th rank of Week magazine, Best Private Law Colleges All India, 9th rank of Chronicle magazine, Top Lines to 2019, 10th rank of Education Post magazine, Private Law Colleges 2019, 2nd rank of India Today magazine in Private Law Colleges with the lowest tuition fees, and 35th in Best Law Colleges in 2019, 9th rank of Education Post magazine in 2020. This is the background. And apart from this, this is a college where we are running the institution with the devotion and commitment, because it was run by the society, which is consisting of advocates, retired judges, and also sitting judges. This service is the motto of this particular institution. We, the society, established another college, women's college. As a result of that, the particular Marathwada Legal Education Society was converted into Marathwada Legal and General Education Society in 1971. With that object of serving the legal education and women education in this region. And at the same time, this institution is known for its quality because of its commitment towards moot court. From 1971, we are conducting moot courts, and 2000 it was converted into national moot court. 20 years completed in this particular moot court competitions, national, state level debate competition, national level PowerPoint competition, legal aid. And our institution is recognized by NALSA, where we got funds from 1.20 lakhs from NALSA for conducting 12 legal aid camps, awareness camps every year. This is the particular background of this institution. So on behalf of the MP Law College, Marathwada Legal Education Society's MP Law College, I welcome all the participants, chief guests, and the resource person for this August gathering. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, sir. We are honored to have Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayan Murthy, sir, Judge of the High Court of Andhra Pradesh, as our chief guest this morning. I call upon Ms. Mrinal Pandey to introduce your lordship to the virtual gathering. Over to you, Mrinal.
Thank you, Mayur. At Machilipattanam and had studied at Machilipattanam up to his graduation, Iluru, and enrolled as a on a roll of Bar Council of Andhra Pradesh and started practice as a standing counsel for Machilipattanam municipality in 1991 and session judge grade 2 by direct recruitment from Andhra Pradesh Judicial Academy as a best trainee district, had served as the additional chief judge, City Small Courts Court, Hyderabad, and Registrar of Vigilance of High Court for the period of 2 years and 10 months. Later, Sir had served as the principal district judge at Guntur, East Godavari, and again at Guntur till his elevation as additional judge of High Court of Andhra Pradesh. Presently, Sir is working as a senior civil judge and appointed as a judge of High Court of Judicature at Hyderabad for the state of Telangana and the state of Andhra Pradesh. I am so fortunate to welcome you, sir, on the behalf of Manchan Pahade Law College and Legal Aid Clinic, Aurangabad. Heartiest welcome you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrinal. We are delighted to have Advocate Sri J.K. Vasarikar, sir, President of MLNG Society, Aurangabad, as President of this inaugural session. May I request, respected sir, to kindly deliver his presidential address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayur. The chief guest of this inaugural session, Honorable Mr. Justice Satyanarayan Murthy, sir, Honorable Mahawat sir, who was at Aurangabad for some period, our principal, Dr. Rao sir, faculty members, student friends, and honorable members of judicial fraternity. On behalf of Marathwada Legal and Education Society, I extend a very warm welcome to everybody. And I also congratulate the coordinator of this 5 days webinar, Professor Dinesh Kulte sir, for choosing this right subject for this webinar, probably because he was in judiciary for some time and therefore he realized the importance and need to hold such a webinar. The judgment writing is not only important for the respected members of judiciary, but also for the practicing advocates, for trial court as well as for appellate courts. Every advocate must understand and interpret the judgment that is delivered by the trial court so that he can, thereafter he can prepare grounds for appeal. So friends, as far as civil judgments are concerned, those are governed by section 33 and 34 of CPC read with order 20 of Civil Procedure Code. We start with plaint, WS, and then another important part of judgment is about framing of issues. Those issues decide what are the disputed areas in every matter and burden lies on whom. Then it is a subsequent thing that onus may shift, or burden and onus are two different things. Then after recording of evidence, final arguments are advanced and now the matter is posted for judgment. So it is for the presiding officer, while delivering the judgment, to state in brief what is the contention of the plaintiff, what is the contention of defendant, what are the disputed areas, I mean the issues framed, and then to give his detailed finding on each and every issue, and lastly to arrive at a proper inference. So while they are advancing the arguments, advocates are citing number of reported case laws which are posing a problem for the judicial officer. Most of them may be irrelevant or not applicable in the present context. So it is for the presiding officer to select and apply his mind for discussing on each and every case law which is supposed to discuss while delivering the judgment. And finally, we see what type of judgment is delivered, whether it is appealable, or the best judgment I say is the one which can stand intact up to the apex court. So I hope that in the next 5 days to come, we will have a detailed discussion on what is the, whether judgment writing is an art, it is a skill, or it is something concerned with law. I look forward and I wish a good luck for this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Lord Shri Krishna, in the 38th shloka of the 4th chapter in Srimad Bhagavad Gita states that there is no equivalent to knowledge. He says that knowledge is supreme of all. So, to enlighten us with his knowledge and wisdom, may I now request our chief guest, Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayana Murthy sir, Judge, High Court of Andhra Pradesh, to address us. Lordship may kindly take over the charge and bless us.
Mr. President of Mr. Vasit, Ritish Matwal, and my senior colleague in college, Mr. C.M. Rao, and other participant prospective advocates and judges, in future at least. Some of you may opt the profession and some of you may opt the employment services in judicial department. But now today's program is art of writing judgments. How many of you agree with me that it is neither an art nor a craft? Do you feel that it is an art? How it can be termed as art? First, let me know what is the purpose of judgment. The purpose of judgment is not only for deciding the issue before the parties, before the court, between the parties before us, but it is helpful in different forms. A judgment is not not only for the benefit of parties, it is also written for the benefit of legal profession. Because if it is a judgment of High Court or Supreme Court, it is a binding precedent. It will have its own force, and the trial court judges are bound to follow the judgment of higher courts as it is a precedent. The other judges and appellate courts are also using those propositions, and appellate court will take assistance from the findings of these courts and law laid down in the judgment. The losing party, normally the losing party is a primary focus and concern. The winner is not much interested to go through the judgment, but because he is the winning party, normally they don't go through the findings recorded by the court since the matter is decided in their favor. The loser, however, in the expensive litigation is entitled to have candid explanation for the reasons for the decision. It is not only of exercise of any appellate right, but also to uphold the intellectual integrity of the system of law, impartiality and logical reasoning recorded by a judge. The lawyer is interested in the judgment as he understands the analysis and expositions of legal precedents and principles,
Sir, Shubham,
reassurance of the quality of the judiciary, because the quality of the judiciary depends upon the judgment writing by a judge. Not it is for the benefit of whole stakeholders involved in the litigation, including the appellate authorities and appellate courts, advocates, parties, and the other colleagues who are sharing the views in view of the judgments. But it is the spectrum of pronouncement of reason for pronouncement of judgment. We are putting an end to the litigation by pronouncing judgment, by recording reasons. And do you agree that it is an art or craft? What the judge must possess. If a judge possesses the five qualities of a judge, that is composure, the conviction to do work, commitment to do work, and craftsmanship and courage, last quality is courage to do work. Otherwise, it is difficult to any judge to pronounce a judgment. He may try the matter, the list pending before it, but unless he possesses such courage to pronounce judgment, that what may come. Therefore, unless these five qualities possessed by a judge, it is difficult for any judge to decide any issue before the court. A judge is entrusted with the task of administering justice, and he should be bold and feel fearless. Otherwise, it is difficult for him to decide. Fearless while acting judicially and giving expression to his views and constructing his judgment or order. It should be no deterrent to formation and expression of a honest opinion and acting thereon, so long as it is within the four corners of the law. If we exceed the boundaries of law, then the judges are liable to be commented for transgressing the limitations. Transgressing the limitations, legal limitations, then there is a possibility of passing some remarks against the judges by the appellate courts. So to avoid such comments or observations against the judges, they must possess all these five qualities. Otherwise, it is difficult for any judge to render a judgment. Coming to the title of our topic, that is art of writing judgment. What do you mean by art of writing? What is meant by art? What is the difference between art and craft? Whether art is sufficient to write a good judgment is again a question. Unless you possess, that means the judge possess the quality of craftsmanship, it is difficult for any judge to decide to write a better, good or better judgment. Art is a form of work, expresses emotions and expressions. Craft is a form of work which has a physical form, just like in molding and carving. While craft is quantified, art is seldom. One can create a duplicate craft form which is not permissible in art. So, the judge must possess both the qualities of art and craft. Otherwise, it is a difficult task for any judge to write a good judgment, at least, not an ordinary judgment. Therefore, the judge must, therefore, according to me, the writing of a judgment is both an art and craft, while disagreeing that it is only an art. Art. Therefore, my request to the participant students who are almost 243 in number, as seen from this icon, participants, you must develop art of writing judgment, so also craftsmanship to write a judgment, to mold it in such manner to attract the reader of the judgment at least. This is my request. In one of the judgments of the apex court in 2001, 3 SCC page 54, Indri K, a judicial officer, the Supreme Court highlighted the qualities to be possessed by a judge, more particularly highlighted the quality of fearlessness while adjudicating any dispute pending before the court. If you are always fearing to adjudicate any matter, it is a difficult task for any judge if you go, if you, even if you acquire sufficient knowledge in the law or experienced as a judge, it is very difficult task for any judge to write a judgment, a good judgment. And then the other quality required to be possessed by the judge is commitment to do it, or conviction to do work as a judge. I have come across so many officers during my experience for the last 22 years, more than 22 years, either as a district judge or as a judge of the High Court. Just judges are just simply sitting and holding court for a short period, almost up to 4:50 or 5 during the court hours. And what is the outcome of the day? Almost zero in many cases. In few cases, some of the judges are pronouncing judgments. But coming to the High Courts, it is a very difficult task to deal with the matters by the judges of the High Court because of pressure on the work. And it varies from person to person. And the subject which the judge dealing with is another problem. Suppose a judge is dealing with criminal matters, particularly quash petition or a service matters at administrative stage. The pressure exerted on the judge is more and more. If a judge is dealing with final hearing of first appeals or second appeals, he can leisurely spend time and can walk out from the court without any tension. So maintenance of composure depends upon the subject which we are dealing with in the High Court. But in trial courts, it is quite normal because they are dealing with all types of matters depending upon the work or the nature of subjects, except special courts like CBI courts and rent controllers, etc. They are dealing with only exclusive matters. But in civil courts, that's dealing with civil matters of all types. Whereas criminal courts, the criminal judges dealing with the matters of all criminal nature, depending upon the hierarchy. Hierarchy. Therefore, the problem is only the high courts. The maintenance of composure is the problem for judges in the high courts. This is one part. Then coming to the important topic for this day is how to write a better judgment. Not I can't say that it's a good judgment, better judgment. Then what the judgment shall contain. But you know the definitions of judgment, the order and decree, etc. in CPC and the relevant provisions of CPC dealing with this. And the procedure is contemplated under order section 33, 34 in civil CPC and along with order 20. And in coming to the criminal judgments 353 onwards, there is a long line of sections. And if anyone can go through the provisions and can understand the procedures, but I'm not concerned with these procedural aspects. First of all, the judgment decides the quality of a judge and quality of the judicial system itself, because the judiciary is surviving on the faith of the public. Faith of the public. We must gain confidence of the public by our judgments, not by our actions outside the court. So we must, unless we are conversant with the requirements to write a good judgment or the contents of a good judgment, it is very difficult for anyone to gain faith from the public, litigant public or public at large. The first requirement of a good, better judgment is a preliminary or introductory part showing the form of the application or the list before us upon which it was made, the manner in which and the place at which the writ or other proceedings originated in the process was served, the parties appearing, any consent, waiver, undertakings or admissions given or made, so placed as to indicate whether they relate to the whole judgment or order or only part of it, and a reference to the evidence upon which the judgment or order is based upon. The second requirement is a substantive or a mandatory part containing the order made by the court, as has been said in Halsbury's Law of England, 4th edition, volume 26p, page number 260. Thus, in view of the requirements of an order or a judgment referred in the Halsbury's Law, an order pronounced on the bench shall contain reasoning, since the judge speaks with the authority by the judgment. The strength of the judgment lies on its reasoning, and it should therefore be convincing. Clarity of exposition is always essential. Dignity, convincingness, and clarity are exalting requirements, but they are subservient to what, after all, is the main object of a judgment, which is not only to do, but seems to do justice. In addition to these main objects of a judgment, which is not only to do the cardinal quality of a good judgment, there are attributes of style, elegance, and happy phrasing, which are its embellishments. In other words, in the words of the Supreme Court Judge, Justice Sabyasachi Mukherjee, the requirement of a good judgment is reason. Judgment is the value and the strength of its reasons. The weight of the judgment, its binding character or its persuasive character, depends on the presentation and articulation of reasons. Reason, therefore, is the sole and spirit of a good judgment, equity, justice, and good conscience are the hallmarks of judging. One who seeks to rely on the principle of law and looks for the decided cases to support the reason to be given in a case or acts which bias or emotions loses rationality in deciding the cases. The blind or strict adherence to the principles of law sometimes carries away a judge and deviates from objectivity of judging a list before the court. Therefore, the judge must keep in these parameters while deciding an issue before the court. Justice M.M. Corbett, former Chief Justice of Supreme Court of South Africa, recommended few basics of a basic structure of the judgment writing, which are as introduction section, setting out the facts of the case, the law and issues, applying the law to the facts, determining the relief, including cause, and finally the order of the court. These are the requirements, basic requirements, which a judgment should contain. Therefore, in one of the judgments of our apex court, in Commissioner of Income Tax Surat versus Shaheli Leasing and Industrial Limited, in civil appeal number 4278 of 2010, para 7, Justice K.G. Balakrishnan with Deedan Chief Justice laid down few guidelines what the order or judgment shall contain. It should always be kept in mind that nothing should be written. Just I am giving the points mentioned in the judgment. It should be always kept in mind that nothing should be written in the judgment or order which may not be germane to the facts of the case. It should have a correlation with the applicable law and facts. The ratio decidendi should be clearly spelled out from the judgment or order. Number 2, after preparing a draft, it is necessary to go through the same to find out if anything is essential to be mentioned has escaped discretion. The ultimate, number 3, the ultimate finished judgment or order should have sustained chronology, regard being had to the concept that it has readable, continued interest, and one does not feel like painting or leaving it in the midway. That is, sometimes we are coming across some judgments, they are not answering, just they are discussing and not answering the judgments, the issue out of several issues. So it is like leaving the painting in the midway. That we should not do it. To elaborate, it should flow and perfect sequence of events which would continue to generate interest in the reader. Reader is also an important person, being one of the stakeholders, though they are not concerned with the rights of the parties, because they're eager to know what is going on, or what was the finding of the judge and how he answered the issue before the court. Number 4, appropriate care should be taken not to load it with all legal knowledge on the subject, as citation of too many judgments creates more confusion rather than clarity. The foremost requirement is that leading judgment should be mentioned and the evolution that has taken place ever since the same were pronounced, and thereafter latest judgment in which all previous judgments have been considered should be mentioned. While writing a judgment, psychology of the reader has also to be taken into consideration, or the judge must bear in mind such psychology, for the perception on that score is imperative. The next requirement is language should not be rhetoric and should not reflect a contrived effort on the part of the author. After arguments are concluded, an endeavor should be made to pronounce a judgment at the earliest and in any case not beyond a period of 3 months, keeping it pending for a long time, sends a wrong signal to the litigants and the society at large. Because if I keep the judgment pending without pronouncement for months together, I have seen some of the judges who did not pronounce judgment even after 2 years from the date when it is resolved. This is a bad practice, I'm telling you. And I have come across one judge of the High Court on the date of retirement. There were about half tractor of judge files pending with him, but he did not pronounce judgment. Most of the parties are waiting for pronouncement of judgment, but ultimately he did not pronounce and sent back all the records to the registry. And then in such case, what the litigant public will think about the judges. So it will create a lot of confusion among the minds of the parties and the parties before the court. And the judiciary is losing faith because of keeping those matters pending for months together without pronouncing judgment from the date when it was reserved for judgment. This is a bad practice, and my request to the prospective judges, participant law students is, in the event of your appointment as a judge or a judicial officer, not to keep any matter pending for more than 30 days. If possible, decide it as early as possible within few days. But there is another problem for the judges presiding the trial courts. Unless they are permitted in writing, they can't dictate the judgment on the bench itself. But this is a special rule. This rule has no application to the judges of the High Court, because the High Court judges can pronounce immediately after hearing, can dictate the judgment on the bench itself. But if a judicial officer in the trial court is authorized in writing by the High Court, then they can dictate the judgment on the bench. If anyone require permission, they can address letter to the registrar or the concerned High Court dealing with this subject and obtain permission if they are able to dictate judgment without fear or favor on the bench. The main difficulty is to dictation of the judgment on the bench creates some apprehension in the mind of a judge, whether he's writing judgment in a proper manner and dictating the judgments readable by the readers or the stakeholders, understanding the law involved in this matter. So first you must wipe out such impression in your mind, then only start dictating small orders, and then continue to dictate the small matters like money source and then injunction source and declaration source, etc. after obtaining permission from the High Court. You need not obtain permission in each and every matter. Blanket permission is sufficient to dictate judgments on the bench. If you dictate judgment on the bench, you can gain confidence in the bar, which is the basic requirement of a judge, because they need not wait to know the reason for rejection of their defense or their plea before the court, in the list pending before the court. Immediately after dictating the judgment, they would know what is the reason recorded by the court. So my request to the future judges and lawyers is to encourage the judges and to dictate the judgments on the bench itself, but the advocates must maintain a little constraint. If suppose the judge is dictating judgment, the habit of the advocates is to interfere while dictating the judgment in the midst of the dictation, because a particular point is not covered by the judge. But my request to the prospective advocates is not to interfere while dictating a judgment. And if anything is not covered by a judge, wait till completion of judgment and make a request to answer a particular issue which the judge lost sight of it. But don't interfere in the midst of dictation, since such interference will create confusion in the mind of judge. He will not continue to dictate the judgment in the same tenacity if it is interrupted by advocates or any other person. And the last requirement of a better judgment is the judge should avoid to give instances which are likely to cause prejudice, cause public agitation or to a particular society. Nothing should be reflected in the same which may hurt the feelings or emotions of any individual society. This is another important aspect. Perhaps you may be knowing about the observations made by one of the judge in Karnataka High Court regarding women. Then they started agitation against the judge because of his judgment. So don't give scope for such agitations and feel free to dictate judgments on the bench as far as possible after obtaining permission by the subordinate judges. But it is a privilege to the judges of the High Court to dictate judgment on the bench itself. Then the judge must possess the quality of neutrality and impartiality. What is neutrality and impartiality? Impartiality requires a cool reason, uncontaminated thinking without being influenced by personal comments, bias, or preconceptions. These are the three requirements. If you maintain all these three, avoid bias, avoid preconceptions, and influence, if any, then the judgment can be said to be an impartial. Then so far as neutrality is concerned, judge normally a neutral is unconnected with either of the parties before the court. But still, the judge starting trial or adjudication process neutral. But ultimately, at the end of trial or at the end of adjudication, has to decide the list before the judge on either way in favor of any one of the parties, but not in favor of both. That is the common sense. In such case, he will not continue to be a neutral because he is deciding in favor of one party before it. So, though he is neutral at the beginning, he is not neutral. He cannot be a neutral judge, neutral person at the end of termination of the proceedings, that is at the end of pronouncing judgment, that is at the time of pronouncing judgment. But it must be impartial, and if it is within the four corners of the law, then nobody will point out any judge. And coming to the types of judgments, there is different process of writing judgment. The judgment the process can be divided into three. The first is syllogistic. The second one is inferential. The third one is intuitive process. Syllogistic or inferential and intuitive process are clear, but we are not more concerned while we are not taking into consideration of these processes while dictating judgments. We have our own way of dictating judgments. Syllogism means a deductive theory, application of deductive scheme of a formal agreement of a major and minor premise and conclusions. In syllogistic process, the judge adopts a deductive process in which he accepts the argument in major premise which overweighs the minor premise to draw his own conclusions. This is known as syllogism, syllogistic process. And the inferential judgment is in the inferential process, the judge relies upon the evidence and reaches its conclusion. This is known as inferential process of writing judgment. The intuitive process, a judge adopts psychological process by which the conclusions are arrived at mostly by intuition. Intuition. Therefore, what we are following in normal course is inferential process normally by the trial court judges. Intuitive judgments are rare, in rarest of rare cases. But syllogistic process is being followed by some of the judges while recording reasons at the end of judgment to put an end to the litigation. Perhaps these aspects will be dealt by the resource persons. I don't know whether they will deal with this different process of writing judgment. And then what are the types of reasons to be recorded? And can we say the only one process of recording reasons, or do we agree with some different motions of judges? Reasoning must be only one. No, there are two different methods of recording reasons. One is inductive process, inductive method, and the second one is deductive process or deductive method. Deductive process. Then there is a difference between deductive and inductive process. Mostly deductive process is being adopted in syllogistic judgment, process of writing judgment, but not in inferential judgment. Inferential. Therefore, we must draw the distinction between deductive process or deductive method of reasoning and inductive method of reasoning. In deductive method of reasoning, the judge arrives at conclusion and supports reasons, record reasons thereafter. In inductive process, the judge discusses the material and record reasons and at the end arrive at conclusion. That is top to bottom and bottom to top. This is the difference between inductive and deductive process. Deductive recording of reason, process of recording reasons. Therefore, normally we are not concerned with these processes, just we are going by our own methods of dictating judgments. But being a students and prospective lawyers and judges, at least you must know the few methods of writing judgment. And therefore, the different methods can be adopted by a judge to write good or better judgment, not a bad judgment. Unless, at the same time, while dictating judgment, you must maintain certain restraint while making certain unnecessary or unwarranted comments against authorities or against the parties before us, and sometimes against the police officials in criminal matters. And while deciding an appeal, some of the judges are feeling fancy to make certain comments against the trial court judges. This is another problem to the judge working in the subordinate court. That my request to the appellate judges, they are not before us, but some of the prospective judges may occupy the position of a judge in the High Court at least after 10 years, not immediately. But my request to the judges, that is at least the resource persons who are in the cadre of district judges, not to record any such disparaging remarks against subordinate judicial officers while deciding an appeal before the court. And the language is concerned, the judge should not use intemperate language. It must always be cool and temperate. Using verbose and writing judgment using certain terms which are not understandable to a public is another problem. And in some of these states, the judgments are being written in regional language. Now, the Supreme Court is also taken up the task of converting judgments from English to regional languages, and the program is in process. And if it is written in the regional language, subject to approval by the state government, it is helpful to litigant public, not only to the litigant public and to the public who are reading the judgment, who are not conversant with English language. Though it is a court language, English is a court language under section 354 of CRPC, still some states like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and other states, the subordinate judicial officers are writing judgments in regional language, that is Hindi and Tamil. But whereas in our state, that is Andhra Pradesh, no such process is commenced, no amendment is affected to section 354 of CRPC, and we are not writing judgments in Telugu except 1 or 2 judges, and they wrote only 2 or 3 judgments throughout their career. So using an intemperate language is to be avoided while writing a judgment. And the most important mistake being committed by most of the judges is a repetition of facts, a repetition of law, and loading more judgments. Whatever they find while searching for the judgments, they are loading all these judgments in the judgment, so that to make it as a prolix judgment. You must avoid writing prolix judgment. It must always be short, clear, and crisp. Therefore, my request to the participants, who are almost 274 in number, right now, in the event of you become a judge, keep in mind these few principles while writing a judgment, which is an end product of a litigation before the court. So with these few words, I am thankful to Mr. C.M. Rao, who is my senior colleague in college, and the president of today's program, Mr. Vasit, and some Ritesh Matwal, where I am unable to pronounce your name, Mr. For giving this opportunity to spare my time for a few minutes. Thank you. We are not able to hear Mr. C.M. Rao. Your voice is not audible.
Said the technicality problem, technical jinx are more in this particular webinar.
Technical glitch is always there. We are facing regularly the same problem while dealing with these matters by video conferencing.
The problem is that only. Some people are complaining, no voice, no voice, no voice. But judges are slow voice only, not like us.
This is a technical problem.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Mr. C.M. Rao.
okay, thank you. Mayur, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Your Lordship, for sharing the insights. This will definitely prove very helpful to each and every person attending this virtual workshop. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. Therefore, so express our deep sense of gratitude towards each and every person because of whom we could have completed this successful inaugural session. I call upon Dr. Anju Singh, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayur. Honorable Chief Guest, Honorable President, respected Principal, Vice Principal, distinguished guests, and attendees. A very warm good morning to all of you. I feel privileged to propose vote of thanks for this inaugural session. At the outset, on behalf of Marathwada Legal and General Education Society's Manikchand Pahade Law College, I express my sincere gratitude to Honorable Justice Shri M. Satyanarayana Murthy, Judge, High Court of Andhra Pradesh, Amravati. Thank you, sir, for gracing the occasion and giving valuable insight on judgment writing. Once again, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I extend my deep sense of gratitude to Honorable Advocate MLNG Society for his presidential address. Thank you, sir, for your support and encouragement. My thanks are due to respected Principal Dr. C.M. Rao, MP Law College, for his motivation and encouragement in all our endeavors. I express my sincere thanks to Vice Principal, respected S.N. More, IQAC Coordinator Dr. Aparna Kottapalle Madam for their support. I congratulate and thank Coordinator of the workshop, Professor Dinesh Polte, for organizing this 5 days online national workshop on judgment writing. I thank all the honorable members of the society for their encouragement in all our endeavors. I thank Mr. Mayur Subedar for anchoring the event and Ms. Minal Pandey for introducing the honorable chief guest. I thank Shubham Deswal and all supporting staff for their technical support. I thank all the honorable judges, advocates, principal, HODs, principals, students, and all the attendees for their virtual presence. Thank you so much.
In presence of the dignitaries and our chief guest, I declare that the inaugural session is over. Before taking leave, there is a notice to all our participants. In the next few minutes, we would be starting with our first session of the first day, presided by our resource person, Sri Ritesh Mavatwal sir, Judge, Panala, Kolhapur. He would be guiding us on the topic of criminal judgment writing. So I request all the participants to stay tuned.